Today, on this weekend, and also about a few days away from patch 10.1.7, we have an informational video, just so you know, just so you are aware of what's coming in the future, about the release of the next season. Because a team of scientists, a team of experts and mathematicians got on the job and figured out when are we gonna get our 10.2 patch. Right now, we are supposed to get the patch 10.2 on the PTR very soon, because 10.1.7 will be released in a few days, meaning that the next patch to hit the PTR will be the new season. So lots of news and new info and data about what's the plan for Blizzard to come in 10.2. But what's also important is when the expansion is coming out. You might have heard, and we even made a video about this, about the player base dwindling a little bit throughout this summer of this season. So the earlier, the better we can hope. But we got on and ran some numbers about the releases of the patches. So this, for example, is our first number that we got at the release of this expansion, which was 57 days between the release of this expansion and the first minor patch. 57 days is, by the way, 8 weeks, which is also, by the way, 2 months. So it took us 2 months to go from the release of the expansion to the first minor patch. Then we went from the first minor patch to the second minor patch. This patch was definitely bigger than 10.0.5 because this is the one that brought us the return to the Forbidden Reach, the addition of the Amulet in the game. We have gotten the Winter Pelt Furbolg faction in the Azurspan. We have gotten the Bane's Search questline, as well as some other extra things like Heritage Armors, etc, etc. And this was once more 57 days, just like the first patch. That's when we started to think, it looks like Blizzard is releasing patches 2 months apart, this expansion. This was slightly modified by Blizzard for the release of our second season, because between 10.0.7 and 10.1 we had 43 days instead of 57. However, there was something that players also thought. Wait a second, 2 months would have been too close to the release of Diablo 4. Perhaps this was made, we had the patch anticipated by just a couple of weeks to try to divide the conflict of interest of 2 Blizzard games being released at the same time. This theory was somewhat confirmed when we went from 10.1 to 10.1.5. Why is that? Because when we went to 10.1.5, which is of course the patch that shall not be named, the patch that brought us, yes, the Mega Dungeon, the Time Rifts, the Whelp Daycare, the Kalendor Cap, Dragon Riding Races. However, it also brought us augmentation and the reworks of Fire Mage and a few other balance tuning changes which created the monster we see today in Mythic Plus. That patch took 73 days to be released. So we went from anticipating the patch by a couple of weeks because of the Diablo 4 release to posticipating, to delaying the next patch by 2 weeks. So basically we got back on track. If you add 14 days to 43, it's 57. If you take away 14 days to 72, it's 58. So we are back to a 57 days to a 2 months average for all of our patches. Now, what is coming in just a few days, 10.1.7, which is also still a quite small patch, honestly, in terms of balance tuning, only a couple of specs are receiving some more extensive changes like Mistweaver and Balance Druid, and also we have gotten the Eastern Kingdoms cap for Dragon Riding Races, as well as the Dream Surges, a couple of additions like the Heritage Armor for Night Elves and for the Forsaken. This patch is coming out on September the 5th, which makes the gap from 10.1.5 to 10.1.7, you guessed it, 57 days. Now, once we are getting here and we start thinking about Season 3 and the release of the patch, obviously there is one thing on our mind. Basically, every patch from the release of the expansion to now had an average of 58, 57 and a half days. 2 months. That has been the average for 5 different patches. We had one patch come early by a couple of weeks because of Diablo 4, and then the average was brought back in line by delaying the next patch by a couple of weeks. So overall, that's been the time it took for Blizzard to release the new patch of the season. Now, if we have to run with these numbers and take this average as the average that will come for the next patch, then from 10.1.7 to 10.2, 57 days would bring us to November the 1st, which is also coincidentally a Wednesday, so a reset day in EU, and I guess 1 day later of a reset day in NA, so it's also on track in terms of the placement in the week, to be exactly 57 days. So this should be our first logical answer, that just by looking at how much it took, how much time the other patches were laid out throughout this year, it's gonna come out on November the 1st. There's only one question mark at this point for this patch, which is called BlizzCon. BlizzCon is making a return this year and is coming out on November the 3rd and November the 4th. So on that weekend where the patch should come out, that's when BlizzCon is coming out. So at that point, we might have this other, extra special delay of a patch by having it delayed by a week, to have the patch come out after this release of 10.2. Perhaps / likely this BlizzCon might also be where the next expansion might be announced. Maybe they might be spending some time talking about this patch as well, so perhaps might make some sense for the patch to come out right after BlizzCon rather than right before. So if we take BlizzCon into account, it might make more sense for the patch rather than coming out on November the 1st by coming out on November the 7th. At the same time though, we usually have a 1 week grace period before the season actually begins. So even if the patch were to come out on November the 1st, the raid would still be not out, the Mythic Plus season would still be not out, and basically everything competitive, right, that will come out in the season won't be out on November the 1st. So maybe they will also let the patch come out on November the 1st and then have BlizzCon come out a few days later, because the actual season would be beginning on November the 7th. And so there is no reason to delay the release of the patch by 1 week. This is what the numbers of all of the previous 5 patches being put in this game are telling us right now. I'm going to leave you with this speculation to speculate by yourself in the comments in case you have some other cooked theory as to when the new patch is gonna come out rather than early November. And besides that, I'm just going to leave you to the rest of your weekend. So with this out of the way, we are going to start our goodbyes by thanking all of the Patreon supporters as usual for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel, which as usual can still be given by liking and commenting down below completely for free, as well as subscribing to the channel itself, which is also free. With these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching, see you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I'm not too sure I like this. This week was quite chill, but now we went up 8 degrees, which isn't like hot level of heat, but still, I don't like this.